Hey, friends. Sorry, I'm being silly. How are you? I'm Rebecca Carroll, and thank you for joining me on this Tuesday Truth Bomb. And today I wanted to take a look at a passage out of the book of Philippians. And if I seem like I'm speaking in a little bit more of a hushed tone, I've got two students in the room behind me who are also in class. And so life has returned to at least a small semblance of normal around the Mike and Rebecca Carroll household. So today we're looking at a passage out of the book of Philippians. And I thought that I would also take a second to show you what I do when I Bible study. So this, let's see if I can get it close enough so that you can see. This is my copy of Philippians. I have printed it out. I copied it from Bible Gateway. I either double or triple spaced it and printed it out. And then what I do, if you can see this, I use different colors to highlight different things. So when something's in purple, it's referring to, I'm underlining one of God's promises. When it's in pink, it is talking about rejoicing or gratitude. Blue is exhortations. And then you can see that the yellow is suffering. And I was very surprised to see, my dog is barking. I was very surprised to see in the book of Philippians, which everyone has always called the joy book, that actually I had a whole lot more yellow than pink. I saw a lot more passages referring to suffering and overcoming circumstances than I did on actual joy passages. And so I drew a conclusion, bear with me if you will, that the book of Philippians, it does have a primary theme, but I'm not going to say that the primary theme is joy. I'm actually going to say that joy is woven through it, but this is primarily a book on overcoming and finding joy through suffering. And one of the most profound passages about that is chapter 1, starting in verse 12. And this is so fun. So Paul is actually writing this letter from prison. He's chained to a Roman guard. And we believe that it was written in Caesar's house, Caesar's palace. And it says, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, says Paul, as he is sitting there in chains, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. And as a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. So let's take about 30 seconds and pick this apart. He says, I want you to know that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. Now, if you're familiar with Paul's missionary journeys at all, as laid out in the book of Acts, you know that Paul has had anything but a cakewalk ministry, right? I mean, this is not a lipstick ministry where he gets to hide in a green room and then go on a big stage. No, since the very first day Paul started proclaiming Jesus, he has been persecuted by Jews. He's been kicked out, run out of nearly every city he visited. He was shipwrecked. And then when he finally crawled up on shore, he was bitten by a viper. And now he finds himself in chains in Caesar's palace. And he says, what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. You see, when big things like this happen to us, I think one of the things we do is we tend to think that we have gotten ourselves out of God's plan or that we heard God wrong, because somewhere along the line, we've gotten this idea that the Christian life maybe shouldn't be easy, but should at least work out after a short period of time. But you see, what's happened to Paul, and particularly his chains as he's sitting in this prison, this is not a hiccup in God's plan. This is God's plan to advance the gospel. And then it says, as a result, it's become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains and for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. So my prayer for us today is that you and I would become a people who dare all the more, who become confident in the Lord, knowing that when we are going through a season of suffering, instead of looking at this like a big, like, oh, what am I going to do? Woe is me. No, let's reframe. Let's get the mind of Paul and reframe this as an opportunity. Sometimes, I'm not going to say every single time, but I will say sometimes the things that seem like such a huge hiccup in our plans, like COVID, all right, that might actually be God's plan for you to glorify him, so that when people see you glorifying the Lord, even in the hardest of times, that they grow confident in the Lord and dare all the more. I have been, as you can see in my notes, I have been really, really sinking my teeth into the book of Philippians for several weeks now, and I am just loving it. And I would encourage you, maybe for the next few days, read it front to back in one sitting. It only takes maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and just let these good, rich words of truth sink in, because I really do think that this book right now is so relevant for us as we seek to reframe the difficulties we're going through and use them as opportunities to glorify Christ, so that others will dare all the more. I hope to see you next week at this same time for another Tuesday. I can do this. Tuesday Truth Bomb. Thank you so much for tuning in.